What's up, 8th grade? Mr. Agnos here, and today we are going to talk about two-step equations. In the last assignment, we looked at one-step equations. Those took 1 step to solve. We had to do one mathematical operation. For these types of equations, we're going to turn up the heat a little bit. We now have to do 2 mathematical operations to figure out what our unknown variable is. Okay, excuse me. The first thing I want to draw your attention to are these, is the solving two-step equations over here on the left-hand side. And this can be a little bit confusing because they actually list 3 steps. We're really concerned with these first 2. Step number 3 is checking our answer. So that's not part of solving it. That's just part of making sure we did it correctly. So we want to look at step 1, undoing addition or subtraction, and step 2, undoing multiplication or division. What's important to remember, and I'm going to say this over and over, is we always do it in this order. That is not the shape that I wanted. We always do it in this order. Addition, or we undo addition or subtraction, and then we undo multiplication or division. So I think that will make more sense once I put an equation up here on the screen. So the equation that they want me to use, it looks a little nasty at first, is x divided by 3. And remember, in 8th grade, we don't use that little division sign anymore. We use a fraction bar to show division. We're going to add 1.5 to that. And all of this mess right here, that's going to equal 2.25. So notice this looks a little more complicated than the equations we were working on last week. Specifically on the left-hand side here, we have more to do. All right. I want you to think of solving a two-step equation as unwrapping a present. Let's say I have a present for you. It's an apple. Okay, this is obviously an apple. It's not a heart. It is an apple. And I want to give it to you. So the first thing I do is I'm going to put a box around it. And then the last thing I'm going to do is tie a bow. There's the bow. Okay, the first thing that I did was put a box around it, and the last thing I did was put on the ribbon. Well, if you're going to open this present, you have to do what I did, except in the exact opposite order. The first thing you have to do is get rid of the bow. Remember, that was the last thing I did. Well, this is the first thing you have to do. So you're going to get rid of the bow. All right, the first thing I did was put it in the box. The last thing you're going to do is take it out of the box. And there is your present. So in other words, you do exactly what I did, except you do it in reverse order. So let's see how that little example applies to my equation here. The first thing that I'm doing to x is dividing it by 3, and then I'm adding 1.5. That means that you're going to get rid of the 1.5 first, and then get rid of the divide by 3. And so that's why we always undo addition or subtraction first, and undo multiplication or division second. All right, if I add 1.5, then to get rid of that, I'm going to subtract 1.5 from both sides. So on the left-hand side, I subtract 1.5. Whatever I do to one side of my equation, remember the equal sign splits our equation in half. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Make sure, because we have a decimal here, you're lining things up correctly. Right? If there's nothing here, we can put a 0. All right, on the left-hand side, if I add 1.5 and I take away 1.5, those cancel each other out. If I give you $1.50, but then I charge you $1.50 for maybe a ride home or something, you have nothing. You have no money. We're left with just x divided by 3. So we are one step closer to our solution, but we're not all the way there yet. That's why this is a two-step, because it takes another step to solve it. So now I have x divided by 3 on the left, and that is going to equal whatever this is. This looks like money to me, since we're dealing like in 0.25 and 0.5. I don't mind if you go ahead and use a calculator. Again, the point of this unit is not to test your addition and subtraction. It's, hey, do we understand inverse operations, and can we use them to solve two-step equations? So remember, the calculator is up here in the toolbar. If you click on it, there it is. It actually brings up a whole new page, which you may or may not like. I'm going to do 2.25 minus 1.5, and that equals 0.75. All right, so this is 0.75. So if you look closely at what we have left now, that's a one-step equation like we solved in the last assignment. We just took a two-step and we turned it into a one-step. Now we're going to take a one-step equation and solve it the same way you solved in the previous assignment. If I'm dividing by 3, well then the opposite of that would be to multiply by 3. So on the left-hand side, since I'm dividing my variable by 3, I'm going to multiply my variable by 3. And on the right-hand side, I'll multiply this by 3. All right, these are going to cancel, and I'm left with just my x. On the right-hand side, I have 0.75 times 3. So we'll go back to our calculator, and I'll say 0.75, there it is, times 3 equals 225. So x in this case is equal to 225. All right, now we can check our answer, right? Because right away I was like, hey, this is kind of weird. I have 225 right here, and then I have it right here. But let's see if this works out. So I'm going to do 225 divided by 3, and then I'm going to add 1.5 to it. And we'll see. We should get 225. 225 divided by 3 is equal to 0.75. And then if I add 1.5 to that, I'm right back to 225. So our solution checks out. We did get the correct answer. Excuse me. It's very smoky today from those fires, so I keep coughing. All right, let's take a look at a couple more examples where I'm 7 minutes in. I got about 8 more minutes in this video, so I definitely want to show you a couple more examples. All right. All right, here they give us another nasty looking equation. I'll rewrite it so it's a little easier to see. We have 5b. So b is our variable. So I'm looking at this equation right here. Minus 3.75. And that's going to equal 26.25. Okay, remember from the previous page, we always undo addition and subtraction first, or subtraction first. Well, in this case, we're subtracting, right? I want to get b all by itself, so I need to undo addition or subtraction first. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add 3.75 to both sides. Remember, you do the opposite. Since I'm subtracting 3.75, I add 3.75. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Make sure you line up your decimal points correctly. On the left-hand side, this cancels out. If I take 375 from you, but then I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, and I give it back to you, that cancels each other out, right? You still have the same amount of money you started with. These cancel. So I'm left with 5b. That wasn't the greatest explanation, I realize. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and add those two together using my calculator. 26.25 plus 3.75. Always make sure you typed it in correctly. 30. Look how nice that worked out. Almost like they set it up that way. So that's equal to 30. And again, what I want to draw your attention to is that we took a two-step equation and we basically turned it into a one-step equation. This was an equation you saw in the previous homework assignment, right? So now we just need one more step to solve this. Since I'm multiplying my variable by 5, I'm going to divide by 5 on both sides. So I'll divide by 5 on the left, and I'll divide by 5 on the right. When you're following along with a piece of paper, you should be writing it exactly the way that I am, making sure that you're showing your addition on both sides, making sure you're showing the division on both sides, because this year in 8th grade, these equations are going to get a lot longer, a lot messier. We're going to have multi-step equations, right? Ones that take 3, 4, 5 steps to solve, and you're not going to be able to keep track of it in your head. You have to have it on paper, and you have to be writing it out. All right, these are going to cancel over here, and I'm left with just my b, and 30 divided by 5 is equal to 6. Okay, again, you can plug 6 in here to check your answer. Multiply it by 5, you would get 30, and then 30 minus 3.75 would, in fact, give you 26.25. Okay, I'm at 11 minutes almost. So let's see what I can fit in here. Here we have another equation. This one's really similar to the one we just did. You would subtract 7.3 from both sides and then multiply by 2. So I'm not going to go over that one. It's pretty similar to the one we just did. I do want to show you a question from the homework so you're not confused. So I'm going to go to the homework really quick. All right, here's question number 1, and it says use algebra tiles to help you solve the equation 3x plus 4 equals 19. Algebra tiles are a tool that some teachers and students use to help solve equations like this. And the basic idea here, excuse me, is that these bigger green ones right here are going to be my 3x, and these smaller ones are going to be my constants, my number that I'm adding. You see how I'm adding 4 here, and I have these 4 little guys here. And you see how I have a 19 over here, and I'm going to have 19 of these yellow guys over here. So you can use these algebra tiles if you've done that before. I don't really use them. Again, the basic idea would be like, hey, the first thing we have to do, I'm going to rewrite this. The first thing we have to do with this equation, we know we have to undo addition or subtraction first, is we have to subtract 4 from both sides. So you can kind of cross these 4 off right here and then cross these 4 off. That means we literally subtracted 4 from each side, right? And then you see what's left. Well, I have my 3x's right here, and then I have however many I have here. And then we would, well, I need to figure out what one of these is worth because this is x. So I would divide by 3, and I would divide this remaining amount by 3. So if you are familiar with algebra tiles, go ahead and do that. I'll just solve this one the way that I've been solving it. We're going to undo the addition by subtracting on both sides. Those cancel. I'm left with 3x is equal to 15. So I took a 2-step, I turned it into a 1-step. And now since I am multiplying by 3, I'm going to divide by 3. Divide by 3. Those cancel, and I get x is equal to 5. We can plug this back in to check. 3 times 5 plus 4 equals 19. And what we're really doing here when we check is we're asking a question. It's a question mark. We're saying, does this equal 19? And if it does, we did it correctly. Remember our order of operations? We always do multiplication first. So I get 15 plus 4 is equal to 19. And we know that that is true, so we did it correct. Okay guys, so this was a review of solving 2-step equations. I will put a link to a Khan Academy video in this one, either here, or maybe I'll put 2, we'll see. So if my video was confusing, you can watch one of these 2 videos. But what we're going to do in 8th grade is not only are we going to solve them like we did here, but we're also going to be given situations. We're going to have to write the equation and then solve. So send me an email if you have questions, and I hope you found this video helpful.